Tired of asking why? Welcome to the Unresolved Life Podcast, where we are answering life's most difficult questions. Now, here's your host, Teresa Blaze.
Welcome to the Unresolved Life Podcast. I'm Teresa Blaze, and today I got a really special guest with me. She's the host of the Uniquely Created podcast, and this is Krissy Donahoe. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
If you had to describe what the mission of your podcast is, what would it be?
First of all, my podcast is short. I just do 5 minutes and I do it twice a week. And basically it's for people who are living busy lives and who are just wanting a quick, just pick me up, just something that's real, something that's honest, something that's a little bit sarcastic, and just something that kind of says this is life and this is how we get through it. This is how we focus on how God's created us and on how we can just walk with Him.
Why the idea of being uniquely created? Because, I mean, in today's world, we're taught the exact opposite, right? I mean, what made you kind of go off on that theme?
I've always been somebody who marches to the beat of my own drummer. And growing up, I think it made me uncomfortable because I never really felt like I fit in. And then it was once I really started walking with God that I realized that I wasn't made to fit in, that I was made to stand out, that we're all made to stand out. And He made us all different. And that's good. That when we find those little things that made us different, those are the ways that God makes us special. And we don't want to really try and mask those things. We want to embrace those things. And really just be grateful for them because He could have made us all the same. You know, it says, God, you knit me together in my mother's womb. Well, if you knit me together in my mother's womb, you could have made me any way that you wanted. You made me this way for a reason. Why was it that you made me this way? So, you know, we just need to learn to embrace all of those things that make us who we are.
First of all, how did you come to know Christ? And then maybe a second question is, how did you get into podcasting?
I grew up in a church, but not attending every week. I grew up kind of attending sporadically. When I was in high school, Young Life came to my town, and I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to. When a program like that comes and it's exciting and it's invigorating and it shows you God in a way that's unlike how a lot of people have grown up knowing Him, that He's not, you know, the commandeering God who's there to judge you and who's there to make sure that you follow all these rules, but He's the God who's there to love you and the God who's there to accept you and the God who wants a relationship with you. And so it was really at that point that I started forming a relationship with God, but kind of fell out of walking with Him when I was in college. Didn't really come back until after I had had my second child. And during that pregnancy, it was a really rough pregnancy. At that point, I came back to God and I said, I need you. I can't do this on my own. And from that point on, my life hasn't been the same. And my youngest he's going to be 7 soon. And the past 7 years have just been unlike anything I've ever experienced. My life has been better. My relationships have been better. And just everything has been better because I'm finally not fighting anything. I'm embracing everything.
It's one thing to say, God, I'm all yours. It's quite another to go, you know what? I think I'm going to start a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did that come about?
Well, I had been just volunteering at my local church, and one of my gifts is teaching. I have been a English teacher in the high schools before and had stopped doing that before I started my family. Was teaching a little bit through, you know, women's groups. Then I was able to help teach a college class, and I love being able to just share what God is doing, but I wanted to be able to do it more. And I wanted to be able to, I think, reach people who are a little bit further away. And I just thought, well, you know what? This is something that appeals to me. And if I end up just talking to myself in the closet into a microphone, so be it. And if I reach, you know, one person, then that's one person that I reach. Amen. So I just thought I'm going to go for it. And so far I'm enjoying it. And I'm getting messages from people saying that helped me. You spoke to me and it connected with me.
When I get behind the mic and I'm either teaching on the mic or talking about what God is talking to me about or interviewing people, it's like flip a switch. I'm in a whole different headspace and I'm totally cool. Let's talk about some of the things because we talk about being uniquely created and accepting what God has created you to be. In today's day and age, that is like opening up a can of worms.
It is.
I mean, that is, because if you think about it, especially among women, you've got this need to compare how that you look or how you identify with someone else, or worse, with someone on a magazine.
And I've been down that road before. I had postpartum depression after I had my first, and I thought, oh, well, if I change the way I look, I'll feel better. I actually had a nose job when I was 3 months postpartum because I thought, oh my gosh, that'll make me feel better. Okay, first of all, when you're 3 months postpartum and you're suffering from postpartum depression, that is not the right time to get plastic surgery.
No.
And if you get plastic surgery, you should probably research your plastic surgeon, because I went to one who didn't even identify, well, this is a woman who's also carrying a baby in a bucket. This may be, like the little baby carrier. I called him the bucket. But this might not be the right time for her. We might want to figure out what's really the root here. But he just thought, well, I'll take her money. And so he botched my nose job. So now I have a little, now my nose still has a bump and now it's crooked. But I figure it's kind of my mark to show me, don't try and fix what was wrong on the inside by trying to fix the outside, because it doesn't work.
I'm reminded very much of, I don't know if you've heard of the band Project 86. They're a Christian rock band, and they've just released a new album. In fact, I had the pleasure of interviewing the lead singer. He's a pretty good friend. I'm reminded very much of his last song, where he talks about not only transgender, but also he talks about, in the same song, he talks about the idea of placing all of your hope in transforming your body, whether it be by plastic surgery or being transgender or whatever. And one of the lyrics that he brings up is, I'll place all of my hope in this mental psychosis. How many people do you think that are doing that? And it's like, well, if I change gender or if I fix this area of my body, then I'll be healed.
What I've definitely learned is that it doesn't matter what I look like on the outside. What matters is my heart. And the one who truly knows my heart is God. So when I'm hurting on the inside, I just need to go to him and say, God, help me. Help to heal this hurt. Help to heal this area that I'm struggling with. Because that's what matters the most. It doesn't matter what my outside looks like. Now, granted, I shouldn't walk around, in my sweatpants with my hair wrapped up in a turban all the time, because, half the time it's because I'm going to embarrass my children. But, they don't like when I walk around looking like I've just come out of the shower. They would like me to actually get dressed and not just walk around in my bathrobe. But it doesn't matter the outside. What matters is the inside. And God's the only one that can fix that.
What other areas do you think that we misconstrue our identity or don't rely on God, but rely on other things?
Oh, I think in so many ways. I think so many times we have this idea of perfectionism. And, whether it be in our job or our relationships, anything where we hold these unrealistic ideas of what we should become. And then when we can't reach them, we start to just get down and get depressed and start to think, well, I didn't do that. And we start to beat ourselves up. And God says, well, maybe that's not what I wanted you to do. I just want you to do your best. Or maybe we're in the wrong area and we just have to figure out, how have you made me? What do you have in terms of a dream for me? And how can I best reach that goal? I'm trained as a teacher, but that doesn't mean that I want to teach little children.
Right. It's interesting because that's kind of something where God is really, really working with me on through different people, is the idea of, because I've been in the business consulting and internet marketing field for a very long time, and I've been dealing with local clients. Well, the problem that I've had is I've gotten burned out. And so now it's, well, God, how do I use the skills you've given me for your kingdom? Right. And not just trying to build my own in a way that you designed me. And a lot of people, they're like, wait. Are you saying that God actually has an idea of what he wants you to do?
It says he knew all of our days, had them written before we were even born. So he knows every step we're going to take before we take it. And we just have to be willing to be obedient to where he's calling us and not fight it. So many times we try and fight it because we think, oh, but this is what I've trained for and this is where my training is. And he says, well, yeah, that's what I've trained you for, but that doesn't mean that's the way that you're supposed to use it. You have all these skills, but we can use those skills and we can take them and we can move them in another direction.
In the weeks that you have done your podcast, what are some of the biggest things that you have taken away from doing it?
One of the things that I'm learning is that I never have any idea what I'm going to be talking about. I'll think, okay, I'm going to talk about this on Thursday, and I'll start writing it up, and I'll have it all, typed up, and I'll start working on it. And then that morning, God's like, actually, you're going to talk about this. I'm like, okay, scrap that idea.
I have so been there. I have so been there. The audience that we're talking to here is both Christians and non-Christians. And of late, we've talked to the Christians, but what about someone to say, identity and what? Do I look like one of the religious sorts? What would be your answer to that? Maybe someone has found their identity in what they do or how they look because they're not so much a follower of Christ.
Your identity is if you put your identity in how you look, well, but how's that going to change when your appearance changes? I mean, you can't put all your cards in that deck. What is it that you really want to be known as? And whether or not you believe in God, you should believe that there is something out there for you beyond, your mascara and your blush. What is it that you think you want to aspire to be? And how are you going to get there? What makes you happy and what fills you at the end of the day? And I think when people start to do that, then they start to take some of the pressure off of the other things and start to realize it's not the job that makes them happy. Or maybe it is the job, but it's really the fulfillment that they're getting out of what they're doing. Most of the time it's not going to be that paycheck, but a lot of the times it might be helping people. And they start to eventually realize that God is it. He's in all of it. Amen. God is everywhere you look, whether or not you see him there, he's there, and he's behind the scenes pulling all those strings, and eventually you're going to realize that he's there. You just have to be willing to open your eyes to find him.
It says, seek me and you'll find me when you seek me with all your heart. Is there something that God has placed on your heart for the audience or that you have really been thinking about?
For me, it's just being real, just letting people know that walking with Christ does not mean perfection, that it doesn't mean as soon as we accept him into our lives that suddenly our lives are just picture perfect and everything is hunky-dory.
Don't we wish?
Right. Wouldn't that be nice? Sometimes it's harder because you start to get hit with all this spiritual warfare, but walking with him just means that he's there. So through the podcast, I just want to be real and say, here are things that God's showing me. Here are things that I'm struggling with, that I've struggled with. Maybe you can relate. Here's what he's showing me through them. Can you relate to this at all? Is this something that he's also showing you? Because I think sometimes God shares something with us because he wants to help us, but he also wants us to share it with someone else because it's going to speak to them as well.
Amen. Mm-hmm.
So, I just want to be real through the whole thing and say, I'm not a perfect Christian. Nobody is. That's not the point of this. The point is just to walk with him, to listen to him, to be obedient and surrender everything to him, knowing that he knows best and we don't. His ways are higher than ours.
There is that. And, I have found so many oftentimes, especially where he's, working with me, is on the area of independence in the sense of, how oftentimes, I will want to do something independent of him because I don't think he's safe in this area, in whatever that area is. And it's, he's just working with me on so many of those areas. And when you walk into the church, how many within the church you ask them if they're doing all right, and they're like, yeah, I'm fine. But maybe they're not so fine.
Right. I think that's where he gives you the discernment to know what are those other questions you need to be asking, and how do you learn to have relationships with those people so that you can see when they are fine and when they're not, and when do you need to push a little bit harder. Sunday shouldn't just be about going and sitting next to somebody and saying, hi, high five, glad you're here, but actually building a relationship with them and getting beyond the niceties of welcome.
Amen. Amen. Well, do you have anything else that you want to kind of add to the conversation or say to the audience?
I think just the big thing for me is that we need to have community with one another and to be able to walk through life together, because God has made us all as the body of Christ. So I think that's why I chose the name Uniquely Created, because we are all different. Some of us are going to be the pinky toe of the body, and some of us are going to be the thumb. And that doesn't make one person any better than the other. It just makes one person different than the other. And I think it's nice when we can find the things that make us different, but also know that we're united under one mission, and we all need to just work together and support one another, because that's how we get things done.
Krissy, thank you so much for coming on the show. It has been a pleasure having you.
Oh, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been great. Hey guys, if you have enjoyed this content, would you share it with your friends? I have set up a support page. It is at unresolved.life/support. And just as little as $1 a day will help me keep the lights on around here. Thank you guys so much for everything. Thank you for listening. It has been great doing these shows. And I want to hear from you. Do you have anything that you wanted me to cover? Any topic ideas? You can send them to Teresa at unresolved.life. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. And we'll speak again next time.
You've been listening to the Unresolved Life Podcast. To catch all our past shows, go to unresolved.life. That's unresolved.life.